Alright, so I played a game recently called Deep Rock Galactic. So, this is a game, apparently, because I've originally thought it was a parody of some sort. Like a bunch of people came together, somebody made a joke about dwarves digging holes, and somebody else added a bit about space, and another guy decided to make a game like that. Which is mildly amusing, but I was never big on dwarves. Rather have any of the non-boring fantasy races. Hell, just let me play whoever they're shooting. That would be a lot more fun. Anyway, so the problem with Deep Rock Galactic to me lies in the fact that it does nothing truly well, to a point that I can just look at other games and say, yeah, I would rather play those. The mining is kind of dull, and it's not like you can actually explore and dive deeply and greedily. This isn't Mario with Gimli behind the corner. As the levels are randomly generated every single time, they simply can't have anything interesting in them. In fact, many times I've had so many issues with the levels, as the objectives tell me to find a number of something, and I just could not. It wasn't there. Maybe if I had a full team and would look behind every single pixel we'd find something, but no, I was playing exclusively solo. By the way, I know it's supposed to be a social game, but again, I'd rather do a solo to form an opinion before touching multiplayer. So yeah, I'd rather dig in Terraria. The fact that you're allowed to have a persistent world which sometimes changes due to certain events makes it infinitely more fun to explore and dig around. If anything, that's the part I adored in that game. All that RPG stuff with building your character, collecting hearts, whatever else like that, it was okay, but to me the actual reason why I have 20 plus playthroughs in Terraria is simply because it's fun to dig and uncover stuff. And I've gotten a similar feeling in Subnautica. How cool would it be if Deep Rock worked like Subnautica, but with an ability to dig through and obviously not centered entirely around water? I would love a game like that. Just dig around, explore, find some crazy monsters, and hunker up in the base you yourself built. That would have been great. And instead it's about grinding, randomly generated levels with a couple of different characters and an arsenal that could be switched around. Gee, if only I could think of a game like that. Oh, right, Warframe. Yeah, aside from an ability to dig, Warframe is basically better in every single way, and it's not even remotely close. I guess the tutorial is better in Deep Rock. A lot better. Information just seems a lot easier to find and digest. Warframe is notoriously horrific at telling the player at what it actually wants. But yeah, it's been a decade since I've started playing, more than a decade right now actually, and the tutorial is not important to me in the slightest. So, I'm just trying to be clear here. I did not hate Deep Rock Galactic, I did have a decent amount of fun with it, extraction probably being the standout feature. Warframe has the player get to it in 0.5 seconds. Deep Rock has the pod spawn some distance away, usually, and the player also needs to wait for a mule to dock, in addition to the strict time limit. So the pod can just leave the player behind, meaning failure even if they have completed everything without an issue. And I can recall multiple times I was just looking for that next green beacon as I ran through the swarm of enemies, but it's somehow pathed in a way I cannot follow. It's definitely a lot more fun than whatever Warframe cooks up in that regard. You try slowing down a player going at Mach 5, especially Gauss, who'd just crash into walls and roll over everything in the way. It's hard to make extraction fun when that's the case. In addition, digging can be enjoyable too, meaning sometimes I'd pull out a map, see that, oh no, I need to run around to get where I need to go, and I just drill right through, laughing all the while. Especially great in those missions where the player needs to build and put the pipes through the random spots. Because, for some reason, everything always spawns in the most inconvenient place possible. Without the driller, I just would have taken at least 10 times longer to complete those missions. And sometimes it can be just fun to see a swarm of enemies and peace out into a hole I just dug up. But I've also experienced very, very glaring flaws. Like I said, sometimes looking for the objective can be borderline impossible. Secondary objectives I basically completed maybe 20-30% of the time. It's especially terrible when it's mushrooms, flowers, or just the worst is that thing hanging from the ceiling. And each individual one you need to pick up after shooting it off the ceiling. And you also just pick it up and carry it to a mule. It's so time consuming. Why would you make that a secondary objective? It's so terrible. Anyway, but the main objectives can't be ignored. So Like there is one with a main refinery and the player needs to find those blue crystals. Worst mission ever. How hard would it be to just go into random generation algorithm and add a couple more crystals? I legitimately had to leave multiple times because those stupid blue crystals just were not there. They didn't exist. Same with Morkite. I don't know if it's like one patch in some hidden corner every kilometer, but I did not find enough Morkite more often than I'd consider okay. Using Scout definitely helped, but being forced to use him every single time makes for some terrible design. And a lot of it boils down to the fact that the levels are sometimes just awfully designed. As the title said, we're just covered in some crap. Grass or weeds or roots, I don't know, it's impossible to see anything in there. I think every time it appeared, I've held my hand over Alt F4. Just hovering there, thinking. Anyway, there are other times when the whole level looks like a tornado. And of course, none of those tornado levels have a convenient way to go between levels. Instead, veering off into some random direction on one level, then ended on a dead end in another, and then going right back down. I hated it. No sugarcoating it. Some levels are truly terrible. Without a grappling hook, it's far too annoying to navigate. And I do have to mention the last game I have had. So I did the drilling mission. The Heart, the Geode, or whatever it is. It's called Drill Dozer 1. So for one, basically no resupply resource spawned. Over 10 minutes of that mission I was just spending simply looking for anything to mine. And it was the purple glowing tile set, so it's not like I could see anything easily, because everything just glows. It's like some sort of neon Hong Kong marketplace. There was barely any fuel as well. I saw a lot of fuel at the start, but how am I supposed to go that far back, leaving the drill dozer completely undefended? Besides, it's just tedious to go that far. Anyway, I find the rift zone, I don't touch it, get the fuel, complete the objective very easily, possibly extremely slowly because of the fuel, and I finally resupply, getting a bit more mining done. I then kill the rift stone and try to go for extraction. And that's where the random aspect of the game decided to not just kick me in the balls, but downright murder me. By using a sledgehammer on my balls. As the pod spawned on top of a very narrow spike of a cliff next to another cliff, exactly like it. Meaning the entrance to the pod was clipping into that second cliff from the first one, both of which were already pretty high up. Meaning, to get inside of the extraction pod, I've had to both climb up fairly high, and then I did not even see this at first, and then I had to dig my way to the actual pod entrance as it fell through the cliff a little bit. I died twice just trying to climb up. And the third time, I just could not believe that it would spawn inside a wall like that. I thought it's some sort of texture pop-in, bugged loading or whatever, until it actually started digging through. By the way, the entire time there was more enemies spawning than I have seen in the entire mission prior. So, the point I'm trying to make here is that Deep Rock Galactic is just not very good. If it was released a decade or two earlier, if there weren't simply better games, if devs didn't decide to murder people with random generation and laugh at me, if it had more interest in fighting, mining, customization and whatnot, if, it would be great. But that's not the case, so here we are.